Hello everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome back to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I'm going to be going over my end of the month wrap up for October. I had a really great month in October. There were some misses near the end of the month, but overall it was a great month. I did read a lot more for the novella readathon and then also the Monster Mash readathon because I wanted to black out both of those boards. So I'm going to briefly go over my stats for the month and then we'll dive into the books that I read for the last half of October. Okay, so just to briefly go over my stats, I did read 36 books this month, which was great for me. Obviously, some of those are novellas, so I was able to read a little bit more than I usually would. Plus, the readathons kind of pushed me to read more. But I did read 11,082 pages. I think I had 8 arcs in total. I forgot to write that down, but I think I had that many arcs. So to go over my stars, I had 2 6-star books, which was really amazing. One of those 6-star books I'm going to talk about in this video. The other one was the first half of the month. And hopefully I won't gush too long about my 6-star because it blew me away. Then I had 10 5-stars, 13 4-stars, 3 3.5 stars, 4 3 stars, 1 2.5 star, and 3 2 stars. So a lot of those like 2 stars and stuff, I think we're like near the end of the month. I didn't have the best month for the end with my arcs. They weren't that great. Obviously, I didn't give those 2 stars. I'm a little bit nicer for arcs, but we'll go over that in a bit. So let's go ahead and dive right into the last half month of October. I did read 16 books. I don't usually read so much. I thought I could do like a weekly wrap up, but lately, the last few months, I've read more than I usually do. And I don't know if you guys it would be better to do weekly wrap ups. That way I'm not doing so many in one video. I don't know. I don't know if you guys want to sit here for an hour when I talk that long, but let me know in the comments below if you think maybe in the new year I should try a weekly wrap up just to see if that's a little better. But I always just thought I didn't read enough to do weekly wrap up. Anyways, let's just dive right into the books read because we have a lot to go over in this video. So the first book that I read was Hideaway. This is a reread. This is by Penelope Douglas. We ended up reading Kill Switch for our buddy read, which was the 3rd book. So I wanted to do kind of a reread of Kai and Banks' story just to kind of... I read a long time ago. I don't know why I stopped reading the series because it's really great series. But this is the 2nd book in the Devil's Night series, and this is Kai and Banks' story. This is the Devil Knights, so we have flashbacks between like the past and the present, and this is more Kai's story and what goes on Devil's Night years ago when he meets Banks. And Banks is actually the sister to Damon, even though nobody really knew that. They didn't know who she was. She's this very mysterious character. She kind of dresses in men's clothes and like downs her appearance. And her and Damon's relationship is really fascinating because Damon was sexually abused by his mother, and she lived in the home with him, and she like slept in the room with him, and he's very like possessive, but in a kind of a crazy way, which is Damon, and protective over her, and nobody really knew that she was his sister. So when she has run-ins with Kai back in the past, like, he's very intrigued by her, trying to pursue her, but Damon kind of catches them and stops that. And a lot of stuff goes on in the past. I'm not going to go into everything, but now in the future, Damon did some really bad stuff in Corrupt, the 1st book, and he's on the run. He's in hiding. They want to find Damon. And so Kai's trying to draw him out and trying to find him. And he's kind of having to like go to his father. And like his father wants an arranged marriage with Kai and one of his like nieces or something to help him. And his dad is like, Damon's dad is very scary and psycho. And Banks basically comes kind of into the picture to kind of monitor him and kind of be his little sidekick. So there's a lot that goes on in this. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot more the second time I listened to an audiobook. These are available in any place, so if you want to check those out. I did enjoy it more, but I think I kept it at the same rating. Yeah, I kept it 4 stars because honestly, I was more interested in Damon and what's going on with Damon in this story than I was the couple. I do think it's a great romance and a really fascinating book. There's a lot going on. It's action-packed, so I did like it. There's twists and turns. It's just I was more interested in Damon than the couple. So it's still a great read. I just gave it 4 stars and then like 2.5 chilies. So I definitely would recommend. If you haven't read this series, I would definitely recommend it. So then this is going to be the start of the Novella Readathon. They had the group book, which was by C.M. Nascosta, and that was Hollow. This novella was really weird. I have never read C.M. Nascosta, so I really want to read some more of her stuff because I don't really know if this is like her usual. But this was pretty crazy. It was split into like 2 different stories. The first story I had a lot of fun with, and it was like Ichabod Crane and like these 2 headless men that like where they have a head, but they can remove it. And so like the heads are doing certain things like in different positions while they're screwing, but it's weird. I don't even know how to explain it. But it's like a MMM scene in like this locker room at like a club, and it's male, which I love. And like the head stuff, you're trying to figure out, wait, how does this work? It was crazy. So I loved that story. But that was a really short one. The other one was kind of like a Sleepy Hollow retelling, where she's kind of wants to be with the ghost, but she has to do a certain thing to be able to be with him since he's a ghost. So it was pretty weird. It kind of dragged on for me. I didn't really like it as much as I liked the craziness of the first story. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars. The second book one was kind of dragging for me and it didn't really hit. I do think it's very spicy. Like the first one, I would give like 3-4 chili peppers because it was spicy. Sorry if you can hear my air conditioner on the background, but it is freaking hot in California. I mean, it's November, and because I'm filming this kind of late, sorry. Yeah, sorry this is getting up late, but it's November and it's like 90 degrees right now, and I just wish we could get a winter, like an actual winter in California, but it ain't gonna happen. Anyways, so the next book I read was actually an ALC. This is an advanced listening copy. It's an audiobook. It's Where We Belong by Claudia Burgoa. I don't know if I'm saying her last name right. So I've never read this author before, but I got this audiobook, and so I listened to it super fast. It was a quick, easy read. I did enjoy the audiobook, but it is like the 8th book in a series. So I'm dropping in like I think near the end of this series. It's book number 8 in the Paradise Bay Billionaires Brothers series. And this is a brother's best friend, kind of like they're mutually pining, but she thinks she's been pining for her brother's best friend forever. She kind of like, they had a kiss way back when they were younger, but nothing ever came of it. And then he actually finds out he has a kid, and all of a sudden he's a single father. And so she just kind of got friend zoned and nothing ever happens with them. And she's been a huge part of his daughter's life, but she's so in love with him. And so she actually just doesn't want to do it anymore. She's like dying watching him and being close to him, but not being able to be with him. So she basically kind of cuts ties with him and like ghosts him, which was really hard for his daughter because his daughter like really loved her. But she had to do it for her reasons, and she tries to move on with another guy, but it's not really that great of a relationship. And so she has a boyfriend at this time, and this guy, our hero, I'm sorry, what was his name? Ben, kind of wakes up and realizes like, you know, her brother told him like to never ever be with his sister, never to think about it. So he was kind of doing that, but now he's kind of done with it. He wants her in his life. He misses her, and so he kind of tries to pursue her, and she is pretty pissed off because it's like, I have a boyfriend, I'm trying to move on with my life, and you're trying to drag me back in. But I mean, they've been pining for each other for years. So I did like it. It just wasn't that great. I didn't like really feel their chemistry. Most of the book was literally them talking through text and not even like really being together. So it was kind of like they weren't together through most of the book, and then all of a sudden he's trying to be with her and like they're together. So I didn't really like that. I wanted more in-phase personal interactions and them starting to connect. So I gave that 3.5 stars, and it was 2 chilies. So again, continuing on the novellas, I read Midsummer. This is like maybe 30 something pages, so it was a quick one, and you can definitely tell it was quick. It's by Alethia Faust, and I enjoyed it, but it was so short. It wasn't really like you got much out of it, but it is what it is. It was actually like a bear shifter romance. And she's like out in the wilderness. They're doing this hike and they go out, and she kind of runs into, she has like this really horrible boyfriend that has no appreciation for her. Oh, and this is a sapphic romance. So she kind of runs into this bear. She actually comes across like they're like all these creatures out, you know, celebrating. And so the bear takes her in, and it's female. And so it was hot. But I mean, it was 30 something pages, so I couldn't really, it wasn't really that amazing or anything. So I gave this like 3.5 stars. It was a good, like, little tiny novella. Okay, so the next novella I read was like one of my favorites for the Novellathon. And I read Scream for Us by Molly Doyle, and I absolutely loved this. It was a heroine, and she goes to this Halloween party, and she kind of, gets saved by like a creep, you know, a creepy guy's trying to be gropey with her and kind of do too much, and she gets saved by a guy dressed as Ghostface, and he was kind of really zeroed in on her and into her, and so they immediately like kind of hit it off. And then but there's also a guy dressed up as Jason, and then another guy dressed up as Michael Myers, and those are his friends. And so she kind of has interaction with him in the room together, but his friends watching. And so they end up like really hitting it off, and they take her back to their place. And she was actually very heavily bullied and attacked. She almost like kind of tried to kill herself, and she was badly bullied. And they find out about this, so they want to go get revenge against these bullies that are working at like this scary house kind of thing. So they all go to that. So it was bonkers. It was crazy, but I loved it because a thing about me, weird kind of kink I have, but I love a man in a mask, like Kylo Ren, a Deadpool, like it's just so many, you know, Mandalorian, Boba Fett, like a guy in a mask. I don't know what it is. I think it's so fucking hot. So this book was like tailor-made for me. Like I freaking loved it, and it was spicy, and it was a good time. So I gave that one 5 stars. I had so much fun. I think I gave it 4 chilies because it gets spicy. We have multiple guys, you know, they're all kind of taking turns, and it's just fun. So I really had a great time with that one. Then I read our buddy read for October, which was Kill Switch, which is Damon's book. This is book number 3 in the Devil's Night series. I absolutely love this book. I will try to remember to link the live show down below if you want to get everybody's thoughts on that. We all loved it. I think we all gave it 5 stars, so I would definitely recommend it. Damon is one of the most morally gray, crazy characters, and Penelope Douglas did an amazing job kind of taking the villain from the first book and Corrupt and like redeeming him. I mean, he's not fully changed, and that's what I like. He's still kind of fucked up, but you learn so much about him through Hideaway, and then even more in this book. And it was really hard to listen to because a trigger warning is the child abuse and sexual abuse in this. He was, you know, molested by his mother, and so he has a lot of trauma with that. And, you know, he has a lot of issues. He has like a basically like psychopath father that treats him like shit, is a horrible human being. And so Damon has a lot of reasons for why he is the way he is. And his flashbacks go into his interactions with Winter. Winter is actually blind. She's a blind ballerina. She actually had an interaction with Damon when she wasn't blind as a child, and an incident happened where she fell off like this tree house, and she ends up getting blinded by that situation. And so her parents, and she doesn't want to be anywhere near Damon. They kind of blamed it on him. And then years later, when she comes back from like a special school she went to for like blind children, she comes back and she's going to go to the regular high school with everybody else, and Damon is there. So he sees her again and is super fascinated, and he starts to he tried to talk to her as Damon. She was kind of hateful to him for some reason, blaming him for what happened. And then he starts to kind of like watch her, and then he has interactions with her, but not as Damon, as a different like unknown guy that she starts to kind of fall for. And so that's where the issues lies, because when they do end up finally having sex or whatever, she doesn't know it's Damon. And so this is the big event that happened in You Seeing Corrupt, where he had been accused of like rape, and that was her. So we get to kind of see what happened back then, and where he is now. He is going for revenge against her and her family. So he has exposed her father for and got him on the run, basically, to get arrested, where they're going to lose all their money. And he's married her older sister so that he can basically control their family. And he's within the same house as Winter. And so it's just a lot of craziness going on. I absolutely loved it. I think they have such a beautiful connection. You get to see a softer side to Damon. I loved exploring his relationship with Will and how close they were. And that's what makes it so devastating for Will when what happens at the end of Corrupt. So I gave this 5 stars. I really, really loved it. And I gave it 3 chilies. So I think this might be my favorite one. I'd have to reread Corrupt, but I definitely want to get into Will's romance next. So then we continued with the novellas, and I read His Darkest Craving by Tiffany Roberts. This was another favorite. I really liked it. It was really interesting. I think it told a really full, well-balanced story within a short novella. So I really liked it. Tiffany Roberts really do great world building and characters, and so I really love them. And so this is between, I think it's Cruz or Crusade. I think it's Cruz. I might be saying that wrong. And Sophie. And Sophie is actually kind of fled. So trigger warnings in this, there is domestic abuse because she had been in a very abusive marriage. She tried to get away from him. So he went to jail for a little bit because he almost killed her. And she is basically kind of trying to be in hiding because now he is out. So she's moved out to this cabin in the middle of the woods where there's nobody around. And she's trying to be out there and be safe. She kind of feels like she's being watched, but she thinks maybe I'm just being paranoid. But it's actually Cruz. I think that's how you say his name. And he was this, I don't remember what they called him, but he kind of was this being that takes care of the forest and the woods and the life out there. He had kind of a curse put on him so that now he is not in a physical form ever. He's kind of this shadowy kind of being. And then when it gets close to Halloween, he can come into a physical form one night a year. And so he's kind of stalking her, kind of obsessed with her. And, he does some things with his shadows with her, and then tries to kind of build trust with her so that when he becomes his physical form, they can finally be together. So I really, really liked this. I did appreciate, the domestic abuse rep in here, and I think it was very good. I think the characters were amazing. So I really loved the world that it built. I think the trigger warnings I mainly have is domestic abuse, a rape, animal cruelty, and death. So I gave that one 5 stars, and then it was 3 chilies. So the next novella I read was A Witch's Pumpkin Spice Love. This is by Gemma Evans. I thought it was a cute concept, but it didn't really work for me. You have this witch, what was her name? Willa, and she actually has found her familiar. And usually, like, animals are like the witch's familiars, but hers is James. He's this guy that she kind of has a crush on, and she's wondering, is it because she's drawn to him just because he's her familiar? But he's like a total grump, rude asshole. They tried to do the grumpy sunshine in this, and he just came off as a total fucking asshole. So it didn't really work for me because I didn't really like his character. Like, when they finally have sex, he is so cruel to her, and the things he says to her after the sex to like push her away was like, nope, no, I don't like you. It just didn't work for me. So that's why I gave that one 2 stars, was because of the hero. I really liked the heroine, but he was not a hero. He was a fucking ass. So I didn't enjoy that. Then I read Craving the Vampire, another novella by Rose Singh. This is book number 1 in Alien Alpha's Mates. And I thought it was okay. So he's like a vampire alien. She gets taken, captured, and being like sold off. And he was there to do his own investigation because they're trying to find one of their friends. And he sees her. He's instantly into her. It's basically like fated mates. And so he buys her. And then he actually doesn't fully have to buy her because he attacks the guys that had her because they beat on her. And he didn't like that. So he takes her with him, and then they kind of have to have a marriage so that like she can be protected and be with him. I mean, it was just like instant. They were banging instantly, and I didn't really feel their connection, and it was just kind of boring. I was skimming a lot of the sex scenes. So I gave this one 2 stars as well. So wasn't having a great time with these last couple novellas. Okay, sorry, I had to get a drink because I'm about to gush about my favorite book. So I read Keeping 13 by Chloe Walsh. And I can't even talk about, I'm trying to do a vlog of reading Binding 13 and Keeping 13, but it's going to be so freaking long because I talked so much, and these books are so thick and so much happens in them, and they just put you through the freaking ringer. I have never been emotionally invested in characters as much as I have in these characters in these books. I don't know. Chloe Walsh is just an amazing storyteller. And these are such character-driven books. Like, there's like no steam in these. And that just shows that like you don't have to put over-the-top steam into a book to make a phenomenal book. Like, I love steam. I still want spicy stuff. But with way it's been lately where it's just like this forced sex, forced over-the-top dirty talk and things, like it's been kind of like taking me out of the story. And this, you literally have them kiss in the first book. That's it. And it's like over 600 pages. And this book, so Binding 13 was good. I gave that one 5 stars. This one was phenomenal because she took all this time to develop these characters in that first book, and now we're getting to the nitty-gritty emotional stuff in Keeping 13. And like, I mean, where I'm emotionally invested, not in just the two, like the hero and heroine, I'm invested in the side characters. Most importantly, Joey, which is Shannon's brother. I'm not going to go into like what Binding 13 is, but basically this is, rugby. It's high school romance, but does not feel high school. And Shannon was heavily bullied, comes to this new school, Tommen, and she's been bullied at her other schools where she's actually like an emotional and stressed out like puker. Like, she was very badly bullied, so trigger warning for that. And she has a abusive drunk father, and abusive, I mean beat the shit out of everybody abusive. And her older brother, Joey, has basically had to take care of this family, be the mother and the father, because the mother just kind of gets railroaded by the father and lets him abuse them, and she's abused by him. And so Joey is the one that, like, breaks my heart in this book. So much happens. I'm not going to get emotional, I swear. So much happens in this book that, like, broke my heart. What Joey has gone through for this family, it's just so heavy. I mean, I listened to this on audiobook, and I was cooking dinner, listening to an audiobook, and I started bawling. I mean, like, heavy crying, crying my eyes out, sobbing, where I had to like step away from dinner. It was so freaking emotional. I cried so many times in this book because it goes into Shannon, you know, the abuse that she suffers, what Joey's been through. Joey has like an addiction problem because of everything that's been on his shoulders and what he's had to go through. And so it's just so heavy, but like beautiful. The relationships, the parents, Johnny's parents are just so wonderful. And these like younger siblings, and the friend group is amazing. I could go on, and I'm not going to do that because I'll be here forever. So hopefully I'll get that vlog up soon. But this is a 6-star read. I can't stop talking about it. Unfortunately, my mom had to listen to me talk about this so many times. But this book is everything. It's beautiful. It deals with heavy stuff, but it's so important, and it's just so well done that this book is so worth the hype. I mean, Binding 13 is a little slow, but I get what she was doing, building up this world and giving so many details and building it up. And keeping 13 is just so moving. So 6-star read. I think 1 and 1.5 spice like chilies. It's not that spicy, but when they finally do have sex, it just means more because you just love these characters so much. They're true soulmates. Even though they're only like 16, 17 years old, you feel like they belong together. Okay, so that's enough. I need to stop ranting about this book. It's amazing. Okay, so then I read another arc. I read Pine River by Tijan. I'm not sure if that's how you say the name. I'm not positive, but I think it is. And I really love this book. This was a high school romance. But for some reason, they always pull it off when I read their high school romances where it doesn't come off super juvenile, but like not too mature to be like high school students. And this is between Scout and Ramsey. Ramsey actually has moved to the town. Her triplet cousins live there. So her and her mom went through a really big trauma at their hometown and basically picked up and moved to get closer to family and have a fresh start. Ramsey's previous boyfriend was like the rich guy in town, had a powerful family, and he like abused her really badly. And so a lot of tragic stuff going on in her background where she has PTSD and anxiety, and she doesn't really trust easily. Her triplet cousins were like one of the best part of this. They're amazing. They're so protective over her. They just have such a close relationship. So I really loved that. One of their best friends is Scout, and he's like the bad boy. He's basically, he kind of does MMA fighting. He does underground kind of fighting. He's training to get into the MMA, and so he's kind of like that badass guy that like doesn't want to settle down. Him and Scout like instantly dislike each other. I think he kind of reminds her of her ex, so she immediately like doesn't like him, doesn't want anything to do with them, but they are insanely attracted to each other. So this is kind of like a hate to love, instant dislike to be like hate, like enemies with benefits, I guess. And so they decide, hey, we have this physical attraction, let's just hook up, but there'll be no feelings involved. And we know how that goes, don't we? There's always going to be feelings involved. So I really liked this. Trigger warnings in this is domestic abuse, assault, PTSD, and murder. There's a lot of like little twists and turns going on with like his family and who he really is. And then obviously her past and everything that she's gone through. So they start to kind of hook up, and obviously it leads to more feelings that they were trying to fight. So I really liked it. I hope that they're going to continue on with like the cousins books, because I really love the triplet cousins, especially one brother was like, I loved him. So I gave this 5 stars and 3.5 on the chilies, because they get pretty kinky and go after it with their enemies with benefits situation. So I would definitely recommend that. Then I read another arc. I had a lot of arcs this month. it was tough to keep up with them for me. But I read Hot Shot by Marissa James. This is actually her first book, so I was really thankful to get this arc. I think it's amazing that she like is going after her dream of becoming an author. This is a hockey romance. It's a really quick, fun read. It's pretty low angst, so it was a nice little book to read. And this is book number 1 in the Orlando Storms. Hunter is a rookie NHL player. He has just moved to Florida where our heroine is. And he kind of they have like a cute, like a little meet cute where her car, like the battery died and she was like bending over to get something and he sees like her underwear and he basically offers to help her. And then he wishes he got her number, but he didn't. But he actually runs into her again at her, like she works at a bakery. She's like a baker and wants to like have her own shop one day. And so they hit it off there and exchange numbers and they kind of start this like friendship through text. But he wants more. So he kind of tries to invite her out to coffee to see if they could be dating. But once she finds out he's in hockey and he's a pro player, she basically tells him like, I can't be involved with you. That's not going to work for me. So basically she friend zones him. So this was kind of a slow burn for like a shorter book because she friend zones him and like fights her attraction to him for so long of it. And he's just a really good guy. Like he's a cinnamon roll hero and he's very sweet. So eventually they finally kind of get together. But there is like, miscommunication and also like she's hiding that her father is his coach, which she doesn't have a good relationship with him. She just found out he was her father. And so she's hiding that from him. And that kind of bugged me because it's like she could have told him way back and it wouldn't be this big deal. So that was the only thing that kind of drew it down to like a 4-star for me, was all that conflict for it was such a dumb thing. So I gave this 4 stars and it was 2 chilies. I think it was a really great first book. So I'm definitely interested to see what she does from here. Okay, so then I read another arc and this was You Beautiful Thing You by Saffron A. Kent. I actually got a message through Instagram by I think like her assistant. And they asked if I would be open to doing an arc. I didn't even look into what it was and I accepted it. And I kind of forgot I had this arc. So it was a lot of pressure to read it because I don't know how long the actual book is once it's like released or on Kindle or whatever. Because the arc that I got, this book was over 800 pages. So I was like, what the hell? Am I like 800 something pages? Like this is ridiculous. So that's the main drawback to this book was the length because it gets pretty repetitive. But what the story is about is and this is book number 1 in the Boys of Bardstown. And this is between Ledger and Tempest. And Tempest is basically been like in love with Ledger since she saw him when she was like 16. She kind of stalked him for a little bit, which he knew she was kind of stalking him. And he kind of toyed with her, but he's her brother's rival. So they played soccer together and they hated each other, like a deep hatred, and they would like mess with each other and always be in competition. But she was like obsessed with him. And so she felt like she was kind of betraying her brother. But at that time, a little bit later after their first interaction, she like is pursuing him and they kind of almost get together. And he basically made it seem like he was doing it to get revenge against her brother. And so something bad happened that night. And so she didn't want anything to do with him. And so now she's 19 and she's being forced into a marriage by her father. And he's basically kind of blackmailing her to like ruin her brother's life. And so she's going along with this marriage. She doesn't really care. But the only thing she cares about is having a baby. And so she wants to have a baby before she gets into this marriage and just pass it off as his. So she thinks the thing that she could do as revenge is to go to Ledger, seduce him, get him to knock her up, and then not tell him about it. It seems like a really weird plot when you read that. It's like kind of all over the place. And it kind of was. So I think this was an interesting book, but it was so repetitive, and it would like have like these long trying to be flowery like dialogue, and he would like they would literally say the same things like over and over and over in the book. Like they would say candies and cream, like they'd always like explain her as candies and cream, and him as thunder and thorns, and I'm just like, what are we doing here? It was just, and it was slow moving because it's 800 something pages of this arc. So that was my main issues, were how long the book was, how repetitive. I think we could have cut out half of it and had it be a shorter book. I did enjoy how crazy Ledger is. He's one of the most over-the-top, possessive, jealous, crazy heroes. And so I really liked that. It's just like Tempest was really naive and kind of annoying half the time. So I did rate it a little bit nicer than I probably would have if it wasn't an arc. Honestly, I probably would have DNF'd it if it wasn't an arc. And I gave it 3.5 stars, and it was 2.5 chilies. So I don't know. It should have been edited down. It was way too long. Then I read another arc. You can see I had a lot of arcs at the end of the month that I had to cram through. So I read Forbidden Wish by Scarlett Finn. And this is the 3rd book in the Forbidden series. I've never read this author before, so I didn't really know what to expect. But this is between Jagger and Imogen, and it is like kind of like a murder mystery where these women are kind of showing up killed. The MO isn't always the same, so the police haven't like tied them together at all. But she is an investigative journalist, and she's looking into this for a friend whose like friend basically died. And she's connecting them and seeing that they're all related. They all have like this tattoo for like this mafia group. And so she's kind of investigating it. She doesn't have any much leads except a lead to go to like this sex club. But you have to be like, it's very VIP and invited, so it's like hard to get into. So she goes to her brother, who's like kind of like was involved in a little bit of mafia stuff, motorcycle gang kind of stuff, I think. And she asks for his help. He says no. But his best friend, who's like he works with, like basically kind of overhears this and goes to the club to kind of like help her. And so it's a brother's best friend. But literally, this is not a romance. Like, there was zero romance in this. They were like, had this run-in at the sex club, kind of messed around a little bit. She pursues him. Is like, he's like, we can't because you're my best friend's sister. And then like the next time they talk, they're together. And it's really no chemistry, no buildup, nothing. It's mostly a book about like the murders and what's going on and the mafia. And so as a romance reader, I was bored. I mean, it did have an interesting storyline with some twists and stuff. So if you like romantic suspense, I think this would be good for you. But like, it was pretty boring when it comes to the romance. So I gave this one 3 stars and 1 chili. Like, there was like no, like the sex scenes weren't even like sex scenes to me. I was pretty bored. So I was pretty disappointed in that one. Then I read Fractured Souls by Neva Altaj, and I freaking love this series. If you haven't started this series, I think it's such a good series to go into as like an intro to Mafia. It's Mafia light, I feel like, with like really beautiful relationships. They're shorter books, so you can read them in a day. Like, honestly, like, they're so good. This one was a little bit darker than her other ones, and she does warn you in the beginning of the book that this is like her darkest one to date at that time that she wrote this book. Because it does deal with, sex trafficking and rape and all that kind of stuff. So in this, we have Pavel, or they call him Pasha, I think, and Azia. I think that's how you say her name. And Azia was like actually connected to the Cosa Nostra. Her brother is in that, and she actually gets kidnapped. She has a twin. She gets kidnapped at like when she was out at the bar one night. And what happens is it was like a guy that was like trying to hook up with her. He fully rapes her and then drugs her and takes her back. And she becomes captive for like a few months of this sex trafficking ring where she's forcibly drugged, and they kind of get the girls drugged and addicted to this so that they could be compliant, and she's basically forced to have sex with their clients. So she manages to get away one night, and she kind of collapses in front of Pavel's car. She's naked. She's almost like seizing up, like having a overdose. And it's from this drug that like he found it, and it's like a new drug out there. And so he's kind of investigating that. He basically decides to take her home to his house and get in touch with her family once she, wakes up and is better and everything. But she doesn't want to go back to her brother. She doesn't want to contact him because she feels such shame and, has a lot of, she is out, like not in a good place when she wakes up. She has major PTSD. She kind of trauma bonds to Pavel instantly and like kind of clings to him like she won't let go of him. She wants him to like sleep with her, and she feels like safe with him. And so she kind of stays with him, and they build this beautiful relationship. He's trying to help her because she has so much issues and she doesn't want to talk to a therapist. She has like trouble making this just the simplest decision. So he's trying to help her through all these things. Just the caretaking and how patient he was with her was just truly beautiful. Like, I loved it. So I gave this one 5 stars, and it's 2.5 on the Chili's. Just be aware the trigger warnings were for rape, sex trafficking, forced drugging, and PTSD. So wonderful. I loved it. I think each one of these books, like, I'll think is like my favorite, and then the next one will be even better. So I can't wait to continue it. Okay, so the last book that I read was Vanquish by Pam Godwin. We read Deliver last month for our buddy read, and I freaking loved it. And I was so intrigued by Van, who is actually kind of like a villain in Deliver. He had been the one to kidnap Liv and train her to be like, he was going to train her to be a sex slave and give her off, but he basically becomes obsessed with her, and he ended up kind of like having sex with her and breaking the rules so that they both got like the scars, and he basically kept her. So he got to keep her, and they would have to kidnap people and train them to be sex slaves. So a lot of triggers in this book, and just make sure to check your triggers. Van is an interesting character because he was basically, raised, I don't want to say a lot because it'll give away Deliver, but he was like raised and kind of grew up to be what he is, and because of the things he's been through. In this, it's like a year later after the end of Deliver, and in Deliver, Liv and Josh are actually together, and so they're living together, and he's kind of stalking them for his reasons. And there's happens to be this house across the street from Liv's that looks like abandoned, but actually Amber is there, and she's agoraphobe. And so she never leaves the house. She has a lot of issues. The thing that I loved about this book was it really dived into mental disorders or disabilities. And I mean, this girl has a lot. So she is actually suffering from agoraphobia. She has bulimia, anxiety, OCD, and she also has body dysmorphia. So she was actually like a beauty pageant kind of chick. So she's gorgeous. She's beautiful. But her like husband made her feel like ugly. And he made her feel like where she won't even have sex with the lights on. She feels so disgusting. She works out. She like is OCD, cleans everything in the house. And she can't leave the house. She has severe agoraphobia, and she breaks down just going to the mailbox. So he ends up seeing her there, and he's fascinated. He's becomes obsessed with her, and so he decides that he wants her. And it's a crazy kind of situation where it's like she can't really leave. If he kidnapped her and took her with him, like she can't leave because of her conditions. And then he tries to kind of heal her in his messed up way. I don't know. There was just so much to this. Van like kind of broke my heart. Like he has like these dolls that creep me out, that he would have like these dolls that he had. in the first one, and you find out why he has the dolls, and it kind of made your heart break for him. So I don't know how Pam Godwin does it, but she takes a villain and she redeems them and makes you like them and root for them. And I'm here for it. Like, I love Pam Godwin. She's one of the best dark romance authors alive, and I can't wait to continue this whole series. So those are the books that I read. Hopefully this isn't a super long video yet again. Please let me know in the comments below if you read any of these books or what your favorite book was this, in October. But as always, thank you for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.